In last week's episode, we covered the issue of violence against women. We studied consequences of these acts of violence and how we should eliminate all forms of discrimination towards women. In this final episode of The Society with me, Farhana, we will discuss about the prevalence of violence against children in Malaysia. We will understand the different types of abuse that can be inflicted to children and how we can put a stop to violence against children once and for all. Violence against children includes all forms of violence against people under the age of 18 years old. This can include, but not restricted to, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional or psychological violence, and neglect. Globally, it is estimated that up to 1 billion children aged 2 to 17 years old experience this type of violence. What's worse is that every 5 minutes, a child dies from violence. In Malaysia, data from Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development showed that over 22,000 children, mainly girls, were sexually abused between 2010 and May 2017. Over half of this data were rape cases, 27% were molestation, and 8% was incest.
I've known this person since I can remember. He's been like a big brother to me. And the incident happened when I was 10 or 11, and we were just hanging out watching TV. It's something very normal for us to do, but my sister wasn't there. So he proceeded to move his hand on my waist, and he moved lower his hand until at a certain stage I felt uncomfortable, but as someone who was that young, I didn't know I didn't know what was happening to me. So I can't remember thinking about anything. I just felt really uncomfortable. And I was trying to move, but his grip was very, very strong. And he proceeded to move lower. And I mustered out all my energy to move. And I think it happened for like around 5 minutes. I felt uncomfortable, but I didn't feel violated at that time. But now at this age, I felt really, really violated. I started asking questions like, why didn't I say no? I just remember having like severe anxiety, mood swings growing up. And yeah, especially when I'm living alone in this city, KL, I always feel like somebody is going out for me. I can't be alone with a guy. And yeah, I think that affected me. Like that kind of trauma doesn't just like happen for like 10 minutes. It affects you, hopefully not the rest of my life, but it has affected me until now.
Any form of violence against children, whether it's physical, emotional, or sexual, has a lifelong impact on the health and well-being of the child. It impacts their ability to perform well at school. It impacts their ability to perform socially. They themselves may become perpetrators of violence if they experience violence themselves. And thus we can say it impairs their future growth and development. It also has an economic impact on society. It's very costly to governments where there's a problem of violence against children, because those children aren't able to perform and contribute in the economy, and because they have to seek medical, psychological help and attention. So all those things are very, very costly to a country where you have a high rate of violence against children.
I have pictures of him holding me when I was a baby. That's how close I was to him. He was like a big brother to me. I didn't expect that behavior coming from him, because I expected him being protective of me. We had a lot of fun, like him being like a big brother to me, but at that point I didn't expect him to be like that.
Tragically, normally cases of child sexual abuse, it's someone who's known to the child, and the most common place where children experience sexual abuse is in the home.
He had like a very bad temper, so whenever my mom made a mistake or any of my siblings made a mistake, he will always like beat us. especially my mom, like kick her or, you know, abuse her in any physical ways that he can think of. And I mean, as early as I remember, I was like 6 years old when I saw my dad kick my mom and my mom, you know, fall off. And instead of him apologizing to her, he was the one apologizing to him. It was kind of, I mean, it was really saddening, but at the same time, as a child, you don't really know who you can seek to or who you can trust in telling the adults about these issues and ensuring that it will be resolved. And even when I talk to my mom, she will just tell me like, hey, you know what, you should stay with your dad because he has more money and stuff. You know, I'll probably leave because he keep on abusing me and stuff. I mean, he always justify it as love, you know. I beat you because I love you, because you are doing wrong things, I just wanted to correct you. He uses like random tools that, I mean, he had really hot-tempered, so anything that he can find, you know, like if he can't find things, he would use his hands or to kick us or something like that. Things as small as, you know, I didn't get all 100% in exam would trigger him to beat us. At that time, I didn't know, but I mean, today I realized that nothing justify cruelty or, you know, beatings.
Abuse of children in the home, which is a common problem globally, is associated with stress in the household, including economic stress, emotional stress. It could include problems of alcohol and drug abuse. If there's domestic violence in the home, children are often impacted, and children also might be the subject of violence where domestic violence occurs. But those are all associated problems. So where you have poverty, economic stress, alcohol, drug abuse, these all increase the risk and threat of violence for children in the home.
I think around 10 years old, I just got back from school and someone approached me and, you know, he actually looked into my school uniform and say, oh, you know what, your breast has grown and stuff, which is really traumatizing for me as a child. But at the same time, since I do not feel safe at home, there's no one that I can, you know, refer to or tell to. Because when you grew up at that age, your parents is the only one that you trust. I mean, you trust no one at that particular age. So the one that was supposed to love you or the one that are hurting you, it kind of makes that, you know, it feels like the whole world like shattered in front of you. And from that day onwards, I just, you know, I only trusted myself.
Malaysia has been vocal about ending all forms of violence against children. Just last year, the Deputy Prime Minister announced that tighter laws should be in place to address cases of child abuse.
Kementerian saya mendapatkan bukti-bukti yang lanjut bagaimana kita bukan saja setakat okeylah satu kes tetapi bagaimana kita nak prevent kes-kes ini daripada berlaku, dan apabila kecuaian ke apa-apa kita mesti ketatkan undang-undang ataupun akta-akta yang ada.
Early this year, the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development announced that sex education syllabus is in the works to prevent teen pregnancies and sexual abuse cases amongst children.
You will be in denial if you say don't talk about sex. You know, if they are already practicing that at the age of 13, you want to teach them basic things, they probably know more than the teachers.
While these initiatives are all steps in the right direction, what do we really need to address when it comes to solving issues of violence against children?
In discussion with the government, there is a recognition that just trying to change the law is not enough, because then people will simply find ways to go around it. It's really, to me, about raising awareness, greater advocacy and awareness raising to help people understand, because I do believe that there's just a lack of understanding, awareness about what really happens. And I've been talking to the social workers and the Malaysian Association of Social Welfare Workers, is that people don't want to talk about it. So no one wants to talk about it, and if someone sees a case in their neighborhood or community, they will not report it because they don't feel comfortable. So it's really about the social taboos that don't allow people to discuss the problem. And because it remains a hidden problem, that's why you don't have the data either, it continues because people feel ashamed to speak about it. So people need to be empowered to understand that they need to report these cases, They need to report so that children can be protected, so that children can get access to appropriate services, and so that perpetrators are prosecuted. They simply, by turning their head, which again, it's very common throughout the world, it's an uncomfortable topic, they're letting those children continue to be exposed to further abuse.
While cases of child abuse are rampant in Malaysia, what can we do as a society to help end violence against children?
Well, for one thing, we can speak up. We can speak up for the rights of children. So when we see that children's rights are being violated, that children are not being protected, we have to speak up. And we have to speak up whether we're a teacher, a community leader, a parent, a neighbor. It's our role, it's our responsibility to speak up for children. Children, particularly very young children, they don't have the power to protect themselves. And so it's up to us who are adults to really use our voices and speak up for those children and make sure that their rights are not being violated.
At this age and time, we need to talk about it. It's not something you have to be embarrassed about.
Those who experience the same thing, to know that they are not alone. It may seem small, like some children may forget about these things, but subconsciously it will affect them.
Violence is never the answer, and the rights of children should be protected at all times. There is no one-stop solution to ending violence against children, but what's most important is that all of us need to speak up, not just on this issue, but on all other societal issues that are happening around us. Speak up against injustice, stand up for those without a voice, and educate ourselves on issues that really matter. Only then, we as a society can live in a more peaceful and harmonious Malaysia. This is me, Farhana, signing off.